Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started as people are filtering in here. My name is Lisa Gray. It's great to see so many new faces here. Thank you for coming out and joining us tonight. I am the founder and president of A Promise to Jordan, local organization here in Simsbury that I and a group of others started last year after the loss of my son to a heroin and fentanyl overdose at the age of 24. I know many of you here are struggling in a similar situation, or you're afraid you may get there someday. So I applaud your bravery in coming out tonight and educating yourself, because this is going to be a very, very good program that I hope is going to help all of us a lot. I just wanted to run through a few things that are going on with our group before I introduce our speakers tonight. We have our t-shirts and tank tops available for sale back there. They are a fundraiser for A Promise to Jordan. They come in size small through extra large, and Nancy is out there. Nancy is here wearing the t-shirt. I'm wearing the tank top tonight. Sales have been going very, very well. Tanks are $12 and tees are $15 if you would like to grab a couple. They have this wonderful slogan, "Love yourself enough to struggle," which is something that I wanted to put on the t-shirts because it's very meaningful to me, because I think too many people in our society are not giving themselves the chance to grow through their struggles and challenges in life. Too often they're using substances to self-medicate themselves rather than feeling the pain and moving through it and realizing that by doing that they grow as a person and become a better human being. I think it's so important for each of us in our lives to face up to those challenges and make our way through them, because we learn so much from them. So that's what it means to me. It's very meaningful to me. And of course it has the A Promise to Jordan logo on the back. Our website is up and running. If you have not visited yet, I invite you to take a look, apromisetojordan.org. We've got upcoming events on there, more information about our group. On September 26th, we're going to have a very important program at Eno Memorial Hall. We're doing a Narcan and QPR training. Many of you know what Narcan is. It is naloxone. It's an opioid antagonist that helps people to recover from an opioid overdose if given within a decent time frame of them overdosing. Many of you may not be familiar with QPR, though. That is question, persuade, refer, and it is used to reduce suicidal behaviors and train people in how to talk to and work with people who may be suicidal. Both trainings are saving lives, and you never know when you might have an opportunity to use one of them, especially the Narcan training. With so many people dying on a daily basis from overdoses, you never know when you might be in a situation where you could save a life. You could walk into a bathroom at a restaurant and there could be someone there who's overdosed. And if you've got Narcan on you and you're trained in using it, you have a really good chance of saving that person's life. So I highly encourage you to attend the training. Again, it's on September 26th at Eno Memorial Hall, 6 o'clock, and it is free, and everyone who attends will leave with a free Narcan kit as well. Our group is also working on an initiative to establish Simsbury as only the third community in the state of Connecticut to be designated by the state as a recovery-friendly community. Bristol and Danbury were the first two. We'd like to see Simsbury become designated by the state as recovery-friendly, and what this means is that we would be offering recovery-friendly events in our town. We would offer education and peer groups in the high school. Businesses will be committed to hiring people who are in recovery to give them a second chance on life. And there's a whole list of things that we'll have to go through and work hard to achieve. And then hopefully the state will award that designation. So it's a lot of work. We could use some help on that if you're interested in volunteering. We also need some more board members. We've got 8 on our board right now. I'd like to see a board of 11. So we're always welcoming new board members. We meet once a month on the second Tuesday in Hartford at USS Chowder Pot. So we have a nice seafood or steak dinner to go along with it. And we meet there because we do have some board members who are in the southern part of the state, so we try to meet halfway in a place that's convenient for all of us. Throughout the month of September, you may come into the Simsbury Public Library on the main floor and see a display that's put out by A Promise to Jordan. The library has invited us to put out a display for the entire month. So we'll have a lot of good information displayed out there that you can come and pick up and educate yourselves on. Also, we're hoping to have be able to get a vendor space at some of our upcoming activities and events here in Simsbury. So if anyone is available for a couple of hours to help us man those vendor spaces, we could use a little help with that. And we are working on a lot of special events that are going to be really special and really awesome for the coming year. So please stay tuned and keep an eye on our website. Our next group meeting will be at the library on Tuesday, October 15th. I'm working on the speakers, so that is to be determined. But if you like what you see in here today, I hope you'll think about joining us on October 15th. Okay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our two speakers today. Dominique Simon-Levine launched Allies in Recovery in 2003, an online learning platform for families of those struggling with substance use disorder. She's a facilitator and a trained speaker on issues of addiction and the family. She has worked extensively developing and evaluating federally funded substance abuse programs for organizations and clinics throughout Massachusetts and New York. With an interest in recovery and substance abuse that spans 20 years, she sees a huge need to help families develop the skills to help a loved one recover fully in a supportive, whole, and lasting way in their families and in their communities. Laurie MacDougall is the founder of Resources Education Support Together, REST, a peer-led mutual aid group for families with a loved one with substance use disorder. REST utilizes the Allies in Recovery website craft-based curriculum to empower families by cultivating new skills and strategies through education and training. Laurie is a certified peer recovery specialist for families. She's a guest writer and blogger for the Allies in Recovery website, and she's a former high school math teacher. Dominique and Laurie are here today to tell us about CRAFT. CRAFT, Community Resource and Family Training, is an evidence-based, proven family coaching methodology which has been extensively studied by the National Institutes of Health and other agencies and has significantly outperformed other approaches. Not only is CRAFT the best studied and most successful approach as an intervention, it is the only one based on social learning principles. It's the essential toolkit family members need when relating to someone with addiction issues. So please join me in welcoming Dominique and Laurie.
So I'm going to start out our talk tonight. I want to introduce myself. Thank you, Lisa, for that introduction, so I kind of don't have to go over everything with you. Also, I want to thank Lisa for having us out, and I want to thank you for all of the work that you're doing, because this is God's work, and thank you for everything. So I want to start out by telling you that I am a former high school math teacher here in Simsbury. I taught up at Simsbury High School. I also taught at Westminster School, and I also owned Brookside Bagels. I often tell people that my husband was the girls' hockey coach up at the high school. I coached hockey for the girls at Westminster School. I played on the Simsbury Mother Ducks. But I was very heavily embedded in the community here, and I love Simsbury. I love it here. I'm not going to go too much into it. I often tell people when I do speak about Simsbury, about this beautiful, affluent, sleepy, beautiful New England town, and I'm trying to let people know that this can happen to anybody, to absolutely anybody. Substance use disorder does not discriminate. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter how affluent you are. It doesn't matter, socioeconomic, all of this. It doesn't matter. It has no boundaries that anybody can be affected by substance use disorder. I'll quickly tell you, I'm not going to go into great detail, but I will tell you that my son was living with us. He graduated from a boarding school here in Connecticut, not top of his class, I'm sorry, but with honors. He was working for my husband, his engineering company. My son was the epitome of health. He played hockey, he was recruited for hockey, he was recruited for lacrosse, and he was going to community college while he was living with us, and we went to a holiday party, and I found him the next day overdosed in his bed. Yeah, it wasn't good. short of it is, 4 doses of Narcan is what revived him. By the time I got to the hospital, he was awake, he was alert, he was talking to us, he stayed awake for about 4 hours, and then they came in and said, well, we're gonna release him. And I was like, he can barely breathe. But I knew a few things. I knew that if I said, how do you know he wasn't trying to commit suicide? You didn't bring psych down here, I want psych brought down here, and I want an evaluation done, that they would have to stop everything and they would have to wait to release him. And thank God they did, because he went down from there and ended up on life support. And they came out no less than 4 times to tell us that he was not going to make it. And we were preparing to, we were making funeral arrangements. He made it. He survived. I often believe that he survived because he was the epitome of health. He was playing hockey, he was lifting weights, he was eating healthy, but he was also doing drugs. And I was totally unaware of what he was doing. I thought, pot, okay, right? Drinking, sure. But I had no idea. And then while he was in the hospital, heroin was mentioned. And then I knew, oh man, I'm in for it, right? I'm in a bad place. I can tell you that my journey of it was, he was in the hospital for about 5 or 6 days, and I told him, you will never step foot in the Simsbury home again. You won't. You will never step foot in Brookside Bagels as long as I own it. That's what I did the day he was released. We had a house out in Dartmouth, Mass. I went home, I packed up his room, I put it in the car, I picked him up at the hospital, and I drove him there, and he never stepped foot in that house. We sold it within a couple of months after that, and I moved to Dartmouth, Mass. But I can tell you that my journey, it's really not about him and what he went through. It really is about what I went through and what I learned. And what happened was, of course, I had PTSD. So I remember saying to my husband, honey, I'm on the couch, and I know I can't get off the couch, but I promise at the end of 6 months, if I can't get off the couch, I'll get professional help. And I remember him looking at me and being like, 6 months? You know, you're gonna sit on the couch? And it was like, yeah, I am. I can't move. I couldn't. I can't even explain it to you, but I have a much better understanding of what a chronic depression looks like, what it means to have that severe depression, but I couldn't do anything. At the end of 6 months, that's exactly what I did. I started getting professional help, and I also decided that I would do exactly what they were asking my son to do. They were asking my son to do 90 meetings in 90 days. So I started with 90 meetings in 90 days. And in fact, I didn't just do 1 meeting a day. That's what I lived for. I did 2 meetings. I did 3 meetings. I hit every meeting in the state of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. And I started narrowing down what meetings were good for me. So I am very grateful to Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. They really helped me in those beginning months when I was struggling to deal with things. But I also had a cousin that had gone through the same exact thing that I had gone through with her son, who her and I think a lot alike. And I started hearing these messages and I was like, this doesn't sound right to me. Like I kept hearing, there's always hope. There's always hope. Oh, but there's nothing you can do. And I was like, wow, that's really a hopeless message. And so I started thinking, is that real? Is that true? And I tend to be a little bit ornery, so it was like, yeah, I don't subscribe to that. And my cousin said to me, Laurie, have you heard of craft? No, I've never heard of craft. She said, why don't you go look up craft, because craft is the way you think. And that's what I did. I went and I looked up craft, and it brought me straight to the Allies in Recovery website. I was attending these other meetings. They're called Learn to Cope. They're out in Massachusetts. And I was a facilitator there, and I hounded Dominique and said, you need to come and speak, you need to come and speak, I want you to come and speak. And that's how I got connected to Dominique, because I kind of drove her a little batty and was like, we're gonna be friends. And what I did was I got her to come out to the Learn to Cope meetings, and I started implementing craft in my household. My son wasn't living with me, so I still implemented craft even though he was gone and he was away. He was down in Florida, you know, a part of the lovely patient brokering process that goes on. He'd been out in Torrington, he had gone to Mountainside, you know, the list. But I started implementing craft, and I started to see change. And it was like, okay, all I needed was that one little piece, and I had, you know, that one little bit of success, and then I was hooked and I was dedicated. And so that's really my story and how I came to Allies in Recovery. And my group, REST, Resources, Education, and Support Together, it is a non-traditional support group for families that struggle with a loved one with substance use disorder. We're very, very different than other support groups. We use the Allies in Recovery craft curriculum within our groups. We engage in activities and we learn new coping skills, new strategies. We're really all things substance use disorder, education, 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 which there's the teacher in me. And so REST is a very different, it's something you probably have never seen before. And now Dominique and I are traveling around and actually doing trainings for facilitating for people that want to open up groups that use the Allies in Recovery curriculum. And we also do it with professionals as well that work with families that struggle with a loved one with substance use disorder. So with that being said, I'm going to leave the next piece of our talk over to Dominique.
Move it forward one.
Yep.
So, welcome. I'm so glad to see a full room. I told Lisa, please do your very best, because as soon as this topic comes up, nobody shows up usually. I've never seen a full room come to hear us talk, to talk about the family situation and what you can do as a family. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we got to where we are today. I want to tell you that Laurie's story is remarkable because she went on a hunt. And families really have to go on a hunt to figure out what they're going to do for their kids or their wives or husbands or grandchildren or grandparents. Allies in Recovery works with any dyad, anybody who has somebody they love that's struggling with a substance problem. And so we talk a lot about parents because you're probably, can you give me a hand? How many of you are parents and are worried about somebody? How many of you are the partner of somebody? Grandparents, grandchildren, sisters, brothers. Okay, so it's going to come up again, right? Because you have children who are struggling with substance problems. It runs in families. We still are not really sure whether it's a familial issue, an environmental issue, or a biological inheritance, probably all three, but it tends to run in families. So Laurie went on a hunt and she found some answers for herself. Families are really marginalized in this whole epidemic, in this whole world of substance use disorder. You have to fight with the treatment center. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to let you refer your child to treatment. They have to call and make the appointments. There's so many ways in which you're not listened to. You're assumed that you're problematic as a parent. You're sort of like noise in the system for treatment. Now, can we just get mom out of the room and I can work on the problem, right? But it turns out that families are incredibly influential in changing the situation of a loved one. And Laurie figured this out, and it shouldn't have taken Laurie so long. There should be money put on this. There should be promotion put on this. There needs to be attention to this because, you know what? 40% of Americans have somebody struggling with a substance problem. 40% of you. That's 40 million people. And there's one evidence-based approach that teaches the family what to do, and we can't get traction. I have spent since 2003 working on this approach, and I finally got the state of Massachusetts to buy a subscription to our online site. That's as far as I've gotten in 15 years, really. I've become an expert. I've spoken to hundreds of families. I've learned the treatment system and all of that. But the entire state of Massachusetts, and bless their hearts, they spend this much, probably spend about $150,000 a year on the family, on the issues of the family struggling with the person that has the addiction issue. And that's a hard-fought battle. Every year they want to cut me. They don't understand what I do. They don't understand the point. You guys are the foot soldiers in this battle. And you deserve to be trained. And you deserve to know there is a training. And I'm going to show you a little evidence, because there's actually quite a lot of evidence that this works. But it's not a freebie. You don't get to sort of drop kick your kid into treatment and walk away. You have to do some work too. You have to look at how you're communicating. You have to look at your negative talk and your positive talk and how you're listening. Listening is a big thing, right? You have to understand what you're seeing. When your son or daughter comes in the house or comes for lunch on Sunday, you have to be able to tell if they're high or if they're not. So you need the skills to actually focus more, believe it or not, on your son or daughter and understand what you're seeing in an educated, informed way. And then walking and stepping back from the stuff you can't control. We're all about where your influence begins, ends, and where you have no control. And we're going to do a little bit of work on that with you too, something that everybody can understand. I understood I have one professional in the room. Is there anybody else that's come in that works in this field? So you're mainly family members. And I really appreciate you coming out. And I really appreciate Lisa. There are mothers, pretty much mothers, all around the country doing this kind of work. Just from the bottom up, just saying, you know what, this happened to me and it can't happen to another child. It is striking what we're doing. It's a little ground movement, and you have no money. Maybe Simsbury's giving you a little, but you know, basically you're selling t-shirts. Is there any government officials in there? So yeah, basically you're selling t-shirts to raise funds to keep going. That's the state of things. But you guys, you are the immediate environment around that person with addiction. You know that person the best. You may have disagreements for couples that are in here and you're parenting together. You may have disagreements as to how to approach the issue. But you are a lot of what is surrounding that person. Your young person is asking for money, asking to go to college, asking for rent, you know, and you're seeing them struggle and have troubles with the drugs and the alcohol, and they're not moving forward and out the way the kids down the block are, maybe, you know, and you're starting to see there's an issue, and you're here because you care, and you're here because you're smart. Because this approach, I'm going to show you, this approach works, and there's nothing scientific about it. It's some basic skills training, it's some basic observational skills, looking at signs and symptoms. It's the basics of behaviorism. You step in, reward, hey, your eyes look clear. I'm so glad to see you tonight. What do you say we get that pizza and watch that show you like so much? They walk in and they look high. You go, well, I'm glad you're home safe. I'm going to go to my room. We'll just talk in the morning because I don't think things feel that good right now. You're not going to argue. You're not going to say, you. You're not going to, you did this. You're going to just walk away. You're going to allow, you're going to remove yourself. You're going to not remove the pizza. You're going to remove the warmth of the moment at the door. And you're going to, and you're going to allow natural consequences. If he oversleeps, if she pukes all night, whatever goes on, you're going to let them feel it as best you can, as 100% if you can, if it's not dangerous, right? And we really want you to distinguish between what is dangerous to allow your child to go do and risk and learn from, and what is not. And we're in a time where it's extremely awful out there because there are drugs being laced on top of drugs that, tiny little specks, grains of this stuff can knock you out if you touch it, So we're in a lot of trouble, and the epidemic is marching on. 65,000 people every year, as much as the entire Vietnam War. That's how many people we're losing every year in this country. And it's our kids, It's our loved ones, it's our husbands, it's our grandparents, for Christ's sake, So whatever's going on, we really need to fight. And I'm really almost sometimes up to my, you can see it, you know, I'm redheaded and I get very red and I'm getting very mad. This should upset us all. We shouldn't be in a public library with public TV, all very, very nice with Lisa and cheese cuts, you know, little cubes of cheese, but we are, and this is just where we are. But I don't want us to be here. And so what I've created with Laurie and some other wonderful people is we took an approach that was based in the University of New Mexico called CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training. Basically, I worked with it the way it was designed in the university, clinician, one parent, pretty much, 12 sessions, 1-hour sessions, and they would teach the family craft. And they did these studies.
You want me to bring it down?
Yeah, am I sort of covering it? Yeah. So these are the three main researchers out in New Mexico. Next slide. There are 3 goals of craft. One is to get your loved one into treatment. We believe treatment is the answer, and I know a lot of you have probably seen some treatment already, and you may not have liked what you've seen, or you may have, and you can't get more of it, or your insurance is blocking you. But treatment, self-help, support, peer recovery, all of this area, a good church group, whatever you feel is going to be a positive influence, but specifically treatment in the beginning to learn about addiction is the answer. And that, even if you've been to, and I used to evaluate from Massachusetts, there was a guy at the detox in Worcester, 240 detox admissions, and he was still standing. So, I mean, it's incredible what people can do. It's incredible what you may end up having to struggle through. And so as Lisa so aptly told us in the beginning, is you got to hang on to yourselves and you got to push through here a little bit. And your own vulnerability, your own fragility is, you got to hang on. You got to learn how to take care of yourself. And we don't do it in this fluffy kind of oatmeal granola way. We mean it. You have got to get a hold of your heads. And you have got to stop the spinning and the worry and the hyper-focusing on everything he's doing or not doing. You got to put it down, and you just got to get calm as any way you can, and we're going to show you some ways. And you got to be logical and crafty in how you interact with your child. So he came home, he looked high, you backed away, you said, you know, I'm just not feeling right tonight. You're looking kind of disheveled. I think I'll just go in my room and read. You're removing yourself. You're not offering pizza. You're not offering warmth, right? And then if he oversleeps and misses the job, unless it's going to cost him the job and you need that money, you might let him oversleep. You're not going to wake him up. You're going to let him get in trouble with his job. Anyway, a little example, right? But that is basically what we do. Day in, day out, you're going to learn little steps that you're going to take that you can control, because they involve you, and you're going to see change. That's what Laurie talked about. Very quickly you see, oh my God, that kind of worked. He actually stayed in the room when I walked in. When a mother told me that, she was like, you know, cheerleading, because her kid had been avoiding her in the house for 2 years, pretty much, right? So you want to get them in treatment. You want to reduce the use. You can actually, and this is very counter to what Al-Anon would tell you, you can influence somebody to use less, and you want to improve yourself. You want to improve your own quality of life. Next slide. So I'm going to just show you one study. There have been 8 studies, good, well-designed studies of this approach out of the University of New Mexico and elsewhere. And I'm going to show you one, and I just want you to see how important this approach is. There were 130 family members of people with alcohol problems. They were assigned to one of 3 interventions. They made a 12-session Al-Anon facilitation group. So randomly assigned to this meant that you were going to learn all about Al-Anon, and you were going to be supported to go to Al-Anon. The Johnson Institute, this is that classic kind of intervention that you've seen on A&E. Yeah, A&E. And you know, where the professional kind of gets the whole family together and they've written a letter about how much they love you, the person with addiction, but how much your drinking and using is affecting me. And then there's, you know, it's called a surprise party because the person walks in, the whole family's there, the letter's set, and it used to be a total surprise. Now they do it a little more invitational and a little softer. But then that person says yes because there's tears, there's anger, there's love, it's moving, it's a whole performance, and the person says yes, and then the professional whisks them off to treatment. That costs thousands of dollars to have done, and you pretty much have to be able to pay for private treatment if you're going to get the door of that treatment open on the same moment that he says yes and he gets off. So you're all nodding, so I see some of you have had some experience with all of this. And then craft, 12 sessions of craft. So this were the 3 interventions. Next slide. And here are the results. So Al-Anon, if anybody, do you know Al-Anon for most of you? Okay, Al-Anon is not designed to help you with your loved one. It's designed to help you with you. You apply the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to you. You do a 4th step inventory on you. This is all really beautiful, hopeful stuff, but it doesn't give you the step-by-step, action-by-action that you probably feel you need as parents, because 85% of people in Al-Anon are partners and are women. And so if you're wondering what's going on in Al-Anon, it's mostly that. It's trying to live with somebody, an intimate partner who's active. And look how the Johnson Institute did. It did relatively poorly because it turns out the family is not able to get together and do this thing, or they can't pay for it, or they don't agree, or anyway, it breaks down. It breaks down. And then craft got 65% of people to go into treatment. So we never see the person with addiction. We're just training you to improve how you're communicating, how you know what you're seeing, when to focus on it, when to step in, when to step away, and then a very quiet little intervention around the kitchen table in a calm moment. And you say, you know, I see you've been trying, you're taking the class at the community college, I know it's not going well, and I know the weed and the opiates are having some effect, and I'm just worried for you, and I just wonder if, you know, you'd have better luck getting to class if we put a career coach in place for you. You know, what about talking to a career coach to see what you'd like to do? And the career coach is buzzword for therapists, but we're just going to get him into therapy once or twice and see if we can get that relationship to bond a little. So that's treatment engagement. This is you. So we teach you. We have 12 weeks to teach you this approach. And yet, look, your depression, and the same thing happens with anxiety, it continues to drop. And it drops all the way up to a year. So you've been taught some skills. You've been taught a way of looking at it, of dealing with it, keeping yourself to a point where your depression is lifting, your anxiety is lowering. Next slide. Okay, very, very quickly, because this always goes much slower. Give me a time.
It is 6:35.
Oh, good, okay. Do you want to do this?
So just the 3 stages of substance use disorder, and you've probably already seen this if you're here, but it's use with abandon. So this is where the person is really in denial, and they just, I don't have a problem. What are you talking about, Mom? I don't have a problem. I'm fine. You know what? I can control myself. You may think that I can't, but there's no problem. You know, in the meantime, they've had like 3 car accidents and they've been arrested, but they're not there yet, right? They're not seeing that there is a problem. Taking a drug or drinking may be a problem, so you make small changes, right? This is when they're starting to think about it. You know what? I got pulled over 3 times. Or I didn't get that job that I wanted, or I lost my job. And this is where they're going to start to make small changes, not the changes that we want, right? We want big changes quickly, right now, immediately, but this is not about that. This is a learning process, right? You know what, I have a problem. I also might not want to admit I have a problem to mom or dad, right? But they're thinking about it. And maybe we're not recognizing it. I hear this all the time when I'm working with families. Oh, he's lying to me, or she's lying to me. And what do you mean? What do you mean there? She's lying to you? Well, she came in and she said, I don't want to live like this anymore. And then 10 minutes later, she's out using. I'm like, well, maybe she's not lying to you. Maybe she really doesn't want to live like this right anymore. Why do you think it is that she's then out 10 minutes later and using? Is there something else going on here? Maybe, but to me, that's a sign when she says, it's actually something we call a wish or a dip, right? That's a sign of, I don't want to live like this anymore. That's a sign that they're thinking about making changes, right? And that's what we want to capitalize. We want to capitalize on those moments. Tell me more. Tell me about that. What do you mean you don't want to live this life? Why? What's going on? Tell me about it. I really want to try and understand. A resolution and commitment to stopping using, right? This is when they're really trying to implement changes in their lives. It doesn't mean that they're, hey, I'm ready to go into 30-day treatment. It doesn't mean that. It means that they're committed to making some changes. You know what? Maybe I'm going to start attending a meeting. Oh, wow. That's great, right? Now, I'll let Dominique talk about this. The next slide is actually for a lot of families a really important piece because it's important to understand. Someone said this to me just recently. I just had back surgery and I was, I'd have 2 days. I was feeling incredible, and then I'd have a day where I was like I couldn't get off the couch, and I was talking to the physical therapist, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get better. And he laughed and he said to me, recovery is not a straight line process. And it was like, I know it's not, right? I definitely know it's not. And it's the same with substance use disorder. It's the same. Recovery is not a straight line process. And it also doesn't mean that they go back to square one.
So just continuing a little bit on the story, just to give you some background, I developed an online craft training, right? This is what we're here to learn about this evening. I realized you're never going to afford private clinicians. They're never going to be trained in craft. There are 17 trained craft clinicians in this country right now. 17 for the whole country. And it's never going to be affordable, and you're never going to get off the chair and come to me because there's all this You're just scared and you're ashamed, and you all are dealing with really hard emotions. And you don't really want to go talk to a therapist, right? So anyway, online, I took a 300-page clinical manual. I turned it into a very straightforward 8 modules that are easy to learn and easy to remember, hard to do. And everything you're seeing up here is on the site. So you don't have to take a note. You don't have to remember everything we say. You can go back, and at your own pace, you can learn craft. You can learn this slide, which is on our site. And the idea here is that you start out in the middle and you're just continually using, right? That's a beginning. And then maybe you stop, and maybe you stop for a very brief couple days and you go, look, see, I can stop. So you start using again, and you go, and it's a long, long relapse. And then this time you go, oh man, it wasn't that easy to stop. I mean, I could stop, but I couldn't stay stopped more than 3-4 days. So I'm going to try a little harder because I know that's going to be a hard spot. And I stay sober for a little longer. And then, relapse, but the relapse is shorter. And the sober moments are longer. And then you relapse even shorter. You go, oh man, I can't believe I did that. I'm so ashamed. I know Laurie's son came to her the last time, which is a really good story of she got him to actually call her when he'd been out all night and everybody knew he was using, and it was super dangerous. And he got her to call her and say that he was okay, and that he couldn't believe he'd done it. It was one night. And now it's been...
Well, I can tell you that my son has now been working on his recovery. Since the last blip, it was about 1.5 years, but 4 years. He's only had like three bumps. I call them bumps because they weren't full-fledged going out there and using for a long, it was like one night or 2 nights. And it's because of this that my husband and I were able to intervene, right? Because he would come home and be very, very depressed. I can't believe I put you through this again. I can't believe I'm doing this. You know, he had gone like 1.5 years the first time, and he was like, you know, oh God, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, what do you mean, what are you going to do? It's been 1.5 years. We're not throwing, this is like being on a diet. I don't lose 20 pounds over 6 months and then eat a piece of chocolate cake and think I got to start back at square one. You're in the same position. So we're going to move forward. So this is why I don't like to count. I don't like to count those days or those, but I can say 4 years he's been working on his recovery this past December, and really no major relapses. We're talking just a day or 2. And the last one was the absolute worst, and I believe it was a send-off. It was him saying, one more time, and then I'm done. And believe it or not, he came out here. So what he did, he came back here.
To use.
Yeah. He got a hotel here, and he stayed here. Yep.
So the other reason to see this in your own lives and with your own children is I want you to understand that this is the reality. And you're not gonna, it's not a toggle switch on, they're using, off, they'll never use again. It's a process of moving forward. It's a feedback of learning what's out there, learning about the dangers, learning about the losses and the lack of accomplishments and the shame. It's all of that, and you want to allow them to learn all that as much as you can so that they realize it's not worth it, and they are motivated themselves. They'll say something like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just so sick and tired of myself. Or I really wish I could get my driver's license, and I really would like to start training as a truck driver. And you go, you'd be ready in your back pocket with a list of options that would help him to overcome what active drug use he's still doing, and you would say, look, I'm with you. You keep trying. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. Here's a list of ideas that I've been able to figure out. You take this, and when you feel that the time is right, I will help do everything I can. I will pay. I will take care of your puppy. I will take your children.
This is what I do.
I will do anything to see you go get the help you need to get. Okay? And then you get a F you, Mom, and then you still, okay, no problem. I just thought I'd say it, and we'll talk about it another time. You really prepare for getting a push off, and it's not the end of the world, because there are moments like this all the time when you start listening for them. And you're not going to push treatment every time you hear one, but you're going to realize that there's use, there's non-use or real low use. If you're on opiates, I was an opiate addict for 20 years, and I can tell you that you run out of drugs, and you go into withdrawals, and you're lucky to find some codeine that'll help you through for 3 days before you can find the drug to start again. And so if you're on codeine and your son or daughter is using opiates, and maybe they're using Suboxone on the streets, which is a substitute opiate that's prescribed and is regular dosage and helps people from craving and use. So maybe they get some street Suboxone. In those moments, you may set the line where that's a moment to reward. and then boom, they're high, they kind of, you know, they're like this, right? And you're gonna step back because they're high, right? So you're just gonna learn a couple basic little dance steps and a few things to say, a few things not to say, and you're gonna see a difference because you're gonna surprise the hell out of your children because you're doing something different. And this is about you doing something different. They'll do different when they're ready. You're here now, you're gonna learn this, you're gonna apply it as best you can and be really easy on yourself. I have at least one, Maureen, if I can point you out, Maureen and I have done a little work together. She's a big fan of the site and has good things to say about the help she's gotten from it. But her son is still drinking, you know? But he's no longer in the basement. Can I do this? Okay. He's no longer in the basement at his father's house. Oh, that was awful. They fought, and they were so kind of interwoven. And he's got his own place, and he's got a job, and he's keeping to the job, and he's predictably drinking on nights and weekends, and she predictably knows that she can back up the drinking to the start of the drinking if she takes him out on a Saturday, buys him lunch, go grocery shopping, get some groceries. You know, there's a whole world, but he's young, and he's been willing to do some treatment. It just, the treatment hasn't been that good. This is the other issue, right? The treatment is really uneven, very uneven. But we can talk a little bit about that if we have time. What's coming next?
The modules.
Okay, I've pretty much done it. I've pretty much run you through this. There's a whole module. All of this is online, little brief videos. We did the best we could with the money we had. Little interactive exercises, so you actually bank your answers and you can go back and look at your answers from 6 months ago, 3 months ago. Yeah, 6 months. You could be with us for a couple years because of this process I was just showing you. You're gonna need help now. You're gonna need help when they're in treatment. You're gonna need help understanding when they come out. They don't magically come out fixed and social and polite, you know, they just come out clean, you know, for as long as they can hang on there. And that's a very important time to make sure that, you know, the next treatment is lined up, the next recovery activity, right? So you could be with us for a while. So we want you to stay safe because we know that people can be violent, they can be really different when they're high, right? And you're on an online site. There's no more clinician. I'm not here to be the clinician for you. I'm not a clinician. I'm actually not trained in psychology. I'm trained in addiction because I was an addict. And then I ended up working in and doing research for the state of Massachusetts into evaluating some of their programming. So you need to know how to stay safe. You need to know what to look for. It's Friday night. He's late. It's payday. What do you think? Right? So you're kind of set up and ready. All of a sudden he walks through the door. There's nothing cooking in the kitchen. The lights are down. The heat is down. You've actually left and gone to your sister's for the evening. So, okay, he gets perhaps rewarded in that nobody's freaking out in front of him because he's home late and drunk. But he's also not getting you, which turns out you are very important. Even though you probably don't feel like you're being seen very well, people with addiction don't see the other. They can't have compassion for the other, right? They're so busy being uncomfortable, incredibly uncomfortable. They get really self-centered. It's like the triad, I say the stool. Self-centered, immature, insecure, right? They're not learning, they're not moving through life and taking the pros, the compliments and the failures and adapting themselves as, you know, it's learning behavior, right? And so you need to be able to see what's going on correctly with them. Communication, about 70% of the whole thing, and it makes a huge difference. You have to learn how to say things a little differently. You probably do say things correctly, but maybe you don't realize it because a lot of it isn't. and it looks chaotic. The stepping in when they're not using, the stepping away when they are using, how you're going to take care of your head, how are you going to stop the spinning and the energy that you're just blowing, and you're tired, and you're not sleeping, and all of the rest of that. That does not make you a good candidate for the rest of it. You've got to find a way to talk amongst yourselves if you're both parents, are working with the child, and you have to just appreciate that it's really about looking at how you're distorting your thoughts, how you're scaring yourself, how you're making it worse. So we're going to show you we're going to stay a little bit on here because it's kind of a more generic way of touching on, for everybody, touching all of you with something that might be useful that you can take home with you. And then the intervention is last.
Okay, so I'm going to get started so this is how do I talk to my loved one. So this is module 4. This is all about the communication. And actually, maybe you want to flip through for me now. So we're just gonna quickly go through module 4 a little bit. And module 4 starts out with no negative talk. There are some exercises that you can do in there to try and identify what are the negative things that you say when you're having a conversation. Do you compare your loved one to their siblings? Do you judge them? Do you blame them? Do you shame them? Do you, do you lecture them? Or how about, this is one that I always did. I always gave out statistics, and I actually had to ask Dominique. I was like, why is that negative talk? I'm just giving him the truth, right? She was like, oh, Laurie, you gotta, I'm telling him what to do, right? And also I'm showing him my cards. I'm showing him what I want him to do. And what do you think he's gonna do? The complete opposite of what I want him to do, because I'm mom, right? I'm mom, and he's my son. When all of this happened, he was 25 when he became addicted to heroin. So we're talking about an adult child. We're not talking about a teenager. So one thing I learned, and I can tell you this, I've done this particular module over and over and over again. One thing I learned about negative talk is that means shut up. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to talk in the future. You will be able to talk, but you're going to learn how to talk in a more positive way, how to communicate better, and how to get the most out of your loved one. But just for practice, and this is really good practice for when you get to reflective listening, but just be quiet, because I found that that's all I was really doing, was a whole bunch of negative talk. Positive talk. So you want to, one of the first steps, there's something called pious, P-I-U-S. So positive talk is the P in pious. You want to change what your negative, things that we frame negatively, and you want to change it to something positive. So why do I want to do that? Well, because I'm more likely to get what I want, right? Positivity begets positivity. And knowing how to be positive will give you courage and confidence, right? So how? Well, let's look at a couple of things. So if, typically we say things like, don't be late to get to your grandmother's house. I'm going to be so embarrassed if you show up late for dinner. You could say, I'll see you at home tonight at 10, or I'll see you at grandma's house at about 2 in the afternoon. Right? Much positive and very specific. I'm telling them exactly what I want. Or you're always lying to me. God, all you do is lie. Versus, I appreciate when you're honest with me. Thank you for being honest in that moment. Okay. Show compassion and let them know that you heard them. Right? So get these phrases down. Write them down. I understand how. I can see how that's a very frustrating thing. You know, my son loves to come home and talk about his job. Oh my God, it's so negative all the time. And I'm just constantly saying, wow, yeah, that's got to be very difficult. Yes, I understand how hard that can be, right? And I'm also trying to disengage as much as I can, but it makes sense to me that, in this phrase right here, help me to understand, one of the biggest phrases you can put in your toolbox, help me to understand. You don't understand, Mom. I love getting high. You're right. I don't understand. Tell me about that. Help me to understand because I want to, because I really care, and I don't get it. Right? Admit your part. One thing to bear in mind is that admitting your part does not mean that you're saying to them that they are right and you are wrong. It's just it's a good way to model how to behave or how to take responsibility for your part in something, right? I know that I set up the rule around curfew. I know that I want you home a little bit earlier. I realize that we both count on your job for income, right? That's why you've got to stay employed. Or, I'm sorry that our family would never agree to a total alcohol-free dinner. I don't do that. I insist. Don't come to my house on a, because we're not having alcohol in the house. But I know it can be hurtful when talking about your drinking, right? This is something that actually Dominique helped me with just recently. Be specific, a time, place, and action you are looking for. You need help, very general. You need help. You need a lot of help. Well, no, I don't, right? Leave me alone. What do you mean I need help? You're the one who needs help, huh, right? Mm-hmm. Right? You're crazy. You're the one. I told Dad you should be in a hospital. I've heard that one. Here's a list of 3 therapists that take our insurance and who have openings. Much more specific, right? And much more, it's more positive too. It's not directed at you need help. Let's see, you never help around the house versus I'd appreciate it if you took the trash out on Tuesday evenings after dinner. And I know that this doesn't seem like a big thing, but I learned that it actually is a really big piece of it, because there were times that I started feeling very resentful because my son would, like, I expected him to just know that he should do this. And I hadn't specifically told him that that's what I wanted him to do. So now if he doesn't do it, then I know that he's just trying to aggravate me. But at least I can get specific now, right? And I can keep it short. Be brief. We mean a couple of sentences max. I am a firm believer, the more I've done this, the quieter I can be, the less words I use, the better on everything. To me, the best boundaries in the world are those unspoken. And I really strongly believe that. And if I need to set up a boundary and I have to speak about it, the least amount of words I can use, the better. And the more I can blame it on myself, because those boundaries are all about me, not about his behavior. And I'll use my son because it's him. But, so for example, big long argument. Where the heck were you? Do you know what it's like to worry for hours? How can you do this to me? And I've done all of this stuff, right? Right? Going on and on. Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this to me. And, you know, if my father had done this to my mother, right, when I was a kid, right, that versus you're home. I was sick with worry, right, I'm glad you're okay, let's talk tomorrow, good night, right, totally different, calms it down, de-escalates everything. And the use of I statements instead of you statements. I try really hard to do this. There's a little bit of pushback I find with my son with the I feel statements. Oh, you and your feelings. You know, that's what I get a lot. But I'm learning how to actually tweak these comments in a way that I'm not saying my feelings, but I'm still kind of turning it back to me, but also giving it to him. But so I feel crazy worried, right? I hate to worry about you. I love to, versus you're a jerk to come home late, or, you always do this, you always come in the door after curfew, right? So I statements instead of you statements. And then offer to help. This is something that I find a lot of people don't do this. They don't offer to help the person, right? So would it help if I called you during the day and reminded you or sent you an email? Would it help? How can I help you? And now I've learned to also kind of add a little added piece to that. So I will say something like, especially if it's very important, I will say something like, how can I help you to move forward and still hold to my own personal boundaries? Because I've also heard, how can I help? How can I help you move forward? You can give me the $40 that I want to fill my tank, right? And it's like, how can I help you without giving you the $40 to fill your tank, right? I want to find it in a way that, I want to find a way to say it to him that it cuts it off at my boundary, right? I'm not going to give you whatever you want and contribute to your use, but so baby steps, really important. I've heard that when using craft, don't shoot for 100% success. Shoot for about 70% success, and then if you have 30% success, it's good. It's good. It's 30% more success than what you had last week, right? So it's not about being perfect. It's about little tiny baby steps, picking one thing out of the curriculum that you're going to work on. So maybe this week I'm going to work on no negative talk. And that's it. And see what happens. And come back the next week and say, this week I'm going to work on I statements. And that's it. And if you get 3 I statements in there, that would have been 3 you statements, you did good. Right? It's baby steps. It's a little bit at a time. And also, practice outside of the home. I can tell you right now, I use this stuff in everything I do now. I don't just use it with my son. I use it with my husband because he needs it as well. But I also use it in the workplace, right? This has just taught me some really good communication skills. And so I'm able to talk to people that are my employees in a way that really gets the best out of them too. So this stuff is just really life skills. Oh, reflective listening.
Okay.
This is actually one of my favorites.
So reflective listening, we added this to the craft work that we do because there's a lot of talking that parents do, and there's a lot of retreating and not talking typically from their loved ones. And so we wanted to teach you how to listen. Listening is like gone in many families with addiction. You're just fed up, you predict what they're going to do, and they do it, and you're angry, and you're on the march, right? And so we wanted you to learn how to open up and how to keep somebody talking without offering them $40, or getting caught in any strategy you didn't want to become part of. So what you do with reflective listening, and we're going to show you how to do it. Nobody does it really well. It's kind of awkward at first, but it's so worth it, because if your son or daughter feels listened and understood by you, even if they're saying the most horrible stuff, you will be creating a bridge. And we want you there. We want that bridge with your loved one. We want you we want him or her to know that you're right there, ready with the treatment list, ready with the help. We don't want them running away. So we want them to feel compassion from you. We want them to feel listened and understood. And that's what reflective listening does. Reflective listening, which is nothing more than sort of parroting what you just heard back to them, it keeps you in this neutral zone. You can think, oh God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And you buy time. You just sort of repeat what you hear, and meanwhile the back of your head's going, it's coming, the money, and what am I going to say, and what would craft do? Yeah. So it's a really important thing to learn to do. What are the other benefits? Oh yeah, we were up and down.
Yep.
Good for us.
I think you said them all.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's try it.
Okay.
I'm going to just do the one that we do in the module.
Okay.
So we did get a bit of actors to help us at times, and you'll see this, what we're doing here, we do it online for you. So, Mom, I need money, my car's broken down, I can't get to work.
So you need money, your car broke down, and you're trying to get to work.
You know, Mom, I can't go on like this. I'm not making enough money. I can't keep the car on the road. You and Dad, you don't care. You just want me to go to work. As long as I'm going to work, you don't really care about anything, do you?
So you think Dad and I don't like you?
No, you know, you like me fine, but I just need the money to get the car fixed, to get to work. I'd rather be playing music. It's you and Dad that want me to have this stinking job.
So me and Dad really want you to continue with the job just for the money. You don't want to continue to go to work. You're just doing it in order to fix the car.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the job, it's okay. I mean, I kind of like it there sometimes, but $40. Can I have the $40?
So you're looking for $40 to help you with the car. You kind of like the job. It's okay. It's not as bad as another job.
No, that's true. I mean, it gets me out of the house, and I'm learning stuff. Yeah, okay.
So you're out there learning a few things, and it gets you out of the house. Can you give me a little bit of time to sit down and talk to your father, and maybe we can work out a situation where maybe we can bring the car in to have the car fixed?
Well, thank you, Mom. Yeah, I just really need that to happen. All right? So she bought time. I actually said more positive stuff about the job than she's ever heard before, because she kept egging me on to say more about the job. It's not easy to do because you have attitude, you have opinion, you have, you have, I can't believe this thing, and you got to put all of that away, the judgment, everything. You're just repeating back as neutrally as you can. You're just paraphrasing back what you heard.
And I deliberately said something wrong in the beginning, because the one thing about reflective listening is they will let you know when you are wrong. They'll tell you, no, that's not it. Okay, tell me. And then they'll until you get it right, and they'll keep talking. So it's okay to get it wrong in reflective listening.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know what happens when they pick up on the fact that you're doing this.
It has. It actually has. It actually has.
They do pick up on it.
Yeah, they do. And I honestly back away, and I try it again later. So, for example, I have had that happen, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, I don't mean to upset you. I'm sorry. Okay, we can talk later. And I get out of there. I disengage because I'm really not trying to aggravate him. But I've also said that to him. So in the middle, I'm sorry. I don't mean to upset you. I really am trying to understand, and I just don't understand. So I'm hoping you'll, continue to try and explain it to me. And I'll do that as well. But also, the more I did it, the less I needed it. Because he did clue in what I was doing. And I don't know, the conversation just got shorter and better and easier to work with. But there's nothing wrong with saying, no, I'm sorry, not trying to upset you. I'll go over here, right? The less confrontation, the better, is what I find for me.
Well, for everyone, because what you're really aiming for, this is all strategic. We're not saying you have to do this forever, though. It's not a bad idea to fix things in the communication patterns that you have with your family. But we are really trying to calm it down and build that bridge. You have to keep, this is not tough love. They're not going anywhere. They're your children. I get it. I mean, you may have people here tonight who would just prefer to just walk away, but that's extremely painful to do. You might think you want to throw them out. You might think you don't want to hear from them until, we had a man at training kept saying, I'm not talking to him again until he pays me back that $300. And I'm going, oh, really? You're so good. It was like, well, I wonder if we could look at, whether the $300 is really the goal here, Is that as far as you want to go? You just want to get your damn $300 back, sorry about that. But how does that work strategically with the bigger goal of getting him, sort of shepherding him to treatment and softening things down, right? The other thing about reflective listening too is I often say, I just really want to get it. You know, I'm sorry. I just really want to get it. So we're going to jump a bunch because there's no way. This is 2 days worth of training when we do it with facilitators who want to run groups doing this. We're going to jump to Module 7 because I want to leave it open for questions, and we have like maybe 20 minutes maybe. And we're going to show you just a little bit of what it's like to take a look in your head. And for some of you that have been through therapy and have done all this work, certainly if you're a therapist, you will know this, but it's kind of an aha moment for many of us. So, and it's an important thing when you're struggling with somebody in your life with addiction. You've maybe been at this for 10 years or 20 years. You are a wreck. You know, you are yourself in therapy. You are yourself in groups. You are yourself, you know, having to de-stress and look at all this stuff all the time. And so this is sort of the nugget of where you need to start to try and get your head in a better place.
So just Module 7 is all about you and taking care of yourself. And in our groups, in the rest groups, I always will tell everybody, and we do this in our weekly meetings, you have to be taking care of yourself at the same time that in learning how to really heal yourself, at the same time that you're learning all of these coping skills and different coping mechanisms and communication skills. So we do an exercise on learning about how to take care of ourselves. Then we do an exercise on a new strategy that we're going to work on. The interesting thing that I have found is that the more I learn the different strategies, the better at taking care of myself I become. And I believe it's because it creates a better, a calmer atmosphere, so it makes it easier for me to have to be able to deal with my own emotions and feelings. The other thing I want to talk about is you hear this all the time. Everybody says to you, and I remember when I first started on my journey, you have to take care of yourself. And I remember being like, how do I do that? And they would be like, well, you go get your nails done, and you go and you have your hair done, and you go for a walk. And I was like, I don't get it. That is not going to make me feel good right now, right? I do think that this stuff is incredibly important, but there is another piece of it that we miss. And that is, it's much deeper than that. Taking care of yourself is much deeper than that. And we all bring our own garbage and baggage to the table when we're dealing with this crisis. We have our own really deep-seated, deep-rooted fears and anxieties, right? I often, and let me just ask you this. Your loved one says, I want $40. And you're like, $40? What do you mean you want $40? I gave you $40. What happened to the $40 I gave you last week? You said you put it in your tank. You can't be out of gas anymore. Well, no, I'm going to use it. I'm going to go to the movies. Like, why $40? It's always $40, which we all know why, right? So what happens? What's going on in mom and dad's minds, right? What are they thinking? They're thinking, he's lying to me. I know he's going to go and use that $40 to use. He's going to go buy drugs. But maybe he's not. Maybe he's going to go to the movies. And maybe I should give him the $40 because I really don't want to listen to it anymore. So what happens a lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, they give him the $40. But yet they know inside that they're going to take the $40 and they're going to go buy drugs. Why do they give the $40 up? Why?
It's easier to give in.
Give in, yep, we talked about that. Definitely I don't want to listen to it anymore, right? But why? There's something more there.
Whether they like us.
Yeah, there is that. There absolutely is. But there's also this piece.
Building a little trust.
There's also this piece of it that if I give him the $40, maybe he won't go buy those drugs. Maybe he will go to the movies with it. And if I don't give him the $40, what's he gonna do?
Use.
He's gonna go use. So it's this illusion that that my actions have some influence on the outcome, right? That if I give him the $40, I believe inside that I'm reducing the chance that he's gonna go out and use. But we all know he's gonna take the $40. I mean, it's proof over and over and over and over and over again that he's gonna take that $40 and he's gonna go and use. So, couple of things, and I did that. I'm gonna steal this pad here that they have. So something I did.
You have to come.
Yeah, I know, I gotta come over here anyway, and I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Oh, that's supposed to say event, not even. That's me on the fly, going as quick as I can. Okay, so we looked at this in our meeting this week. There's an event that happens, something that throws us into crisis, which leads us to a particular thought that we have, which then leads us to feelings, what we feel about, right, the feelings that come on. And then the last thing that happens after feelings is some kind of a reaction, right? Isn't that what happens? We have an event, oh my God, he took off, he's gone for 2 days, I'm in a crisis, right? I have these thoughts about it. I already have established beliefs about this event. I know what he's doing. He's out and he's using. I know he's gone. Or I know he's going to be driving the car and he could hit somebody and he could, right? I have all of these real strong beliefs, absolute beliefs about that event and those thoughts. And then I have feelings. I'm sick to my stomach. Oh my God, I'm going out of my mind. And then what do? I react. I start calling the hospital. I mean, I've gotten in the car, guys, and I've gone down to the drug dealer, right? Or I'm driving around looking for him on the streets. Weird. I don't even know where to go, right? Like, what am I doing, right? So let me ask you this. Of those 4 things, the events, the thought, the feelings, the reaction, what do you have control over?
Reaction.
You have control over your reaction.
Your feelings.
Your thoughts. Do you have control over your feelings? Do we have control over our feelings? I don't know. I don't know, maybe. What about thoughts when it first happens? Do you have control over those thoughts? When it first happens, this event happens and you have thoughts.
Well, in crisis mode.
Yeah, you're in crisis mode. So maybe you don't have control over those thoughts that first pop in your head, but do you have the ability to control the thoughts that are going to come into your head? So, for example, I'm walking down the street and Mary, my good friend, passes me and Mary doesn't say hi. And I'm walking, I'm like, I can't. She didn't say hi to me. My God, that witch. Right? Like, I can't believe she didn't say hi to me. Did I do something? Maybe I did something. No, the last time I'm very nice to her. By the time I get home, I hate Mary, and I'm never calling her back, and I'm not saying hi to her, right? Versus I could then stop and I could say, well, maybe Mary wears glasses and didn't have them on today and didn't recognize who I was. Or maybe Mary's having a really bad day and knew that if she started a conversation with me, she might break down and start crying. So I hate Mary by the end of the day, right? Or could I give Mary a call and say, hey Mary, I saw you walking on the sidewalk and we didn't get a chance to speak. Is everything okay? Right? This is an opportunity for me to slow my thoughts down.
Say something.
Consider the alternative, right? Right? And what we're talking about here is we're talking about realistic thinking. We're not talking about pie in the sky thinking, right? I'm not trying to change my feelings so that I feel happy and all is good. I'm trying to change my feelings so that I can manage them, right? We're supposed to feel bad feelings. When bad things happen, we should feel bad. So we're supposed to feel it. So when those thoughts come in, let it wash over your body, feel the bad feelings, then take control, right? Then take control and start changing your thoughts so that oh, Mary might have not had her glasses on today. I don't feel so bad about Mary. I don't hate her anymore, right? Now I'm like, oh, maybe a little. But notice, I'm not putting aside all of those other thoughts that I had, because it still could be that Mary was mad at me for some reason and refused to talk to me. But at least I'm bringing my feelings to a place where I can manage them. Okay, so now I have some form of being able to affect my feelings, but what about my reaction? You said I can control the reaction. Yes, I can. And now I can react or respond in a more logical, well thought out way, so that I'm healthy when I interact with Mary and I'm not bawling her out. Right? So this is what we did this past week, and we're actually going to be working on our feelings all the way through. We're gonna keep doing it, and this is just one little section that we did from Module 7. Actually, what we did was we watched all of Module 7. Now we're doing a whole bunch of activities, and then I'm going to bring it back, and we're going to watch Module 7 again for them to see, okay, make the connection, right? All of this stuff. But yeah.
In that scenario with Mary, I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here thinking, so you're walking in the street, she's walking in the street, did you greet her? Did you say hello to her? Did you do it? I mean, really,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
different.
Right. Exactly. What's
She
my
might hate
responsibility? Right. Right. She probably went home and says, I'm never calling her again. Right? Yeah. Yeah. But I can tell you, I started doing this with my son in crises. I did, and I can tell you, actually, I came to Hartford with a couple of friends to see Chicago, and so we were out late, and I got back to the hotel room. I can't remember specifically what happened. Jesse, my son, was in Florida, and he stopped calling me, or he stopped some form of communication, and I was like, oh my God, this is not good. And I also think it had something to do with the message that he left me. And I was sitting there with my friends, and I was like, okay, now this is the first time that I'm actually starting to do this stuff. And I'm like, okay, what's the worst scenario? The worst scenario is he's gone and he's used and he's gone. Okay, you're in Hartford, you live in Massachusetts, it's 12 o'clock at night. Are you going to get in the car and drive home? Are you going to start calling the police departments? Are you going to... And what if he is gone? If you know he's gone now, what are you going to do? And it was like, I'm going to flip out, scream, cry. I'm going to be devastated. What are you going to do tomorrow if you get home? What if you put that all aside and you just go to sleep and you get up with your girlfriends and you leave tomorrow and you find out tomorrow? I'm going to scream and cry tomorrow, but I'm going to have one night where I didn't scream and cry. So, and I do bring it back to the worst possible scenario because of finding my son the way I did. And I also want to share with you guys the video that you guys post of all the pictures at the different events of all the kids. I can tell you that there are about 4 of those kids that were my students at Westminster as well as Simsbury High School. There were some of those kids that worked for me at Brookside. So I know at least 6 of those kids that are on those posters. So when I see it, it affects me. Right? It really, really affects me. I just wanted to share that with you guys. But questions? Yep.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the canvas. I moved out of Simsbury when I lost my mom to take care of my dad. I miss you all. There's popcorn in the car, but it dumped all over my back seat. So I'm coming from a situation, my boys are healthy, strong, single mom, and very successful. And my concern was myself. 51 years ago, my daddy died in front of my twin sister and I. And he came back from World War II, post-traumatic stress. The argument happened, my twin's death, so she saw everything and I heard everything. And when the gurney took him out, pointed at me and said, next time pick up your toy. And even on my mom's deathbed a year and a half ago, I never got resolved. So my goal with my popcorn and my service to the Lord and my community is to teach those children at birth to 3, I knew in utero I was the extra mouth to feed. I heard it. and that I now at 54 am still recovering from that, but I want to change. I want to go somehow be the canvas for children that don't even know they're in trauma or that they've had PTSD. It was passed down. And is it true, you correct me on this, that at the age that you start being addictive or whatever, mine was just, I was bad, I was awful with a child. And I took care of everyone, and they took my twin away from me for the summer because I was a mother hen. Just like, Jesus, and the comments made to me from my mother. And I turned it around that giving is my means of communication and fairness. I'm standing like a soldier. But is it true that at that age, the addiction and whatever, where you had said their immaturity and their age stays at that point?
That's a common thing to hear.
'Cause mine
I don't
was-
know it's ever really been
Mine-
studied. It feels like it, doesn't it?
It may
does.
feel that way, but, I think Dominique knows this about me. I hate the anecdotal stuff. I hate the things like, how do you know when an addict is lying, his lips are moving? Well, that's not true. They say true things too, right? Yes, I know they manipulate. We just don't notice the positive stuff. We have to find it. We have to dig and we have to find the positive things, which was an activity that we did in one of my meetings. We did a T-sheet, and on the left it was, I want you to write all of the positive comments that you make to your loved one, and on the right I want you to think about all of the negative talk and the negative comments. And they, in the whole group, could not come up with one positive thing that they were saying to the loved one. Not judging them. It was like, no, this is good. This is good. This is what we need to work on then, right? We need to find those positive things. We need to find what's positive out there for you to latch onto, because that's what craft is really all about. Find that positive, man, and just beat on it. But to your point, so what were you saying? You're saying, is it true that they stay at that age? I don't believe it is necessarily true. I believe that, yes, there is some immaturity there because they're not out in the world developing, right? They're not, my son wasn't going off to college, he was in treatment. But to say that he was just sitting in treatment, like doing nothing, no way. He was learning something, right? It might not have been at the speed that I wanted, it might not have been what I wanted him to be learning, but he was learning something. So I don't like all that anecdotal stuff.
I feel I died at 3, and my way of coping, those Shirley Temple dolls that we were, you probably know me, the bizarre, crazy popcorn mama, but when I serve in my community out in Vernon, Stafford now, I teach the children. You know, they said, and I do, that's the way I coped. I have a storybook, a pop-up book in line, and a clothing line.
But maybe that's what you're talking about. So, like with my son, I believe that my son was stunted in his ability to learn coping skills. And his coping skill was using drugs because he was feeling so awful about himself.
Fortunately, mine was,
right.
I made good choices and just created fairness out of one of 9 children. And now it's to put me first, and I have no clue how to do that.
Yeah, what does that mean? Right.
What?
Right. Which that comes with its own baggage too, right? The
So,
guilt
thank you.
and the, yeah.
All right, another question? Yeah.
Is there a module that helps? I have a daughter who's in treatment now. She's in sort of a halfway house. It's a co-occurring, which I'm very happy that she's in because she's suffering with a lot of depression, which I think led somewhat to her use. And so we found this great program and it's co-occurring, and it's a year-long program.
It's called what?
It's a co-occurring.
Yeah. Co-occurring is depression or mental illness with a substance use disorder.
Yeah. But today, for example, something happened yesterday. Her roommate left. She found out a friend of hers used again. It was wicked down in the dumps.
So what's happening in your mind? What are you saying? What are you thinking?
I'm not sure like how to react. I just keep saying, you know, this is your time now. You know, I know that you feel bad about these other people.
No, but yeah, but what are you thinking
What
about?
am I thinking?
Yes.
I'm thinking, hey, just work on yourself, don't worry about these other people. You know?
And what about thinking like, she's where she needs to be? Yeah, it's gonna be rocky, and it's gonna be rocky for a while probably with both, you know,
I'm just
depression.
terrified that she'll leave.
You're terrified that she'll leave, there it is, right?
Yeah.
You don't know whether she'll leave. Do you have any experience of her leaving?
No, she's actually been really, really good about getting herself into treatment. She's been in treatment since May 7th.
So you see what's happening? The event is that she's sounding really shaky and down, right? And your thoughts is she's gonna leave.
Yeah.
But how are you distorting that thought? I mean, is that really the reality? The reality is actually that what did you just say? She's been
in since early May.
and she's done
stayed there.
a good job
Yeah,
of sticking it out,
yeah.
right? So the evidence, you're actually pulling it down in negative and fear, you're
Right.
creating fear by your thoughts because you're thinking she's going to leave. But actually the evidence, if I ask you, the evidence is to the contrary,
Right.
that she's going to be okay. But that fear of her leaving, which is what you really are thinking over and over again, is making you feel worse, right? And so your voice is shaky, you know, and you might just want to leap in there somehow, right? As opposed to knowing and remembering what has been the real experience. It's really important right here to watch what you're doing to yourself. That's what you're doing to yourself, and that's what we're talking about. You're making it worse, you're pulling it down. The shoulds, the coulds, she'll never, she'll always, you know, all of these, we give you 10 of them and we let you apply them to yourselves and see if that rings true for you. But watch what your mind is doing. Your mind is going towards the negative. The minds go way more towards the negative than towards the positive.
And also, with something like this, with what you're talking about, the more confident you can be when you speak with her, the better. So you empower her, right? So saying things like, yes, I know, that is extremely difficult, and wow, you should feel this way. Who can you turn to in your treatment facility when you're going through this? Because this is a learning opportunity, and I know you're in a safe place. And by doing that, you're sending the message of, I know you can do this. I know that you can stay there and you can learn the coping skills versus, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I know the counselor sounds a little shaky there. You know, totally different message that you're sending. So even though you're not confident, sending the message that you are and that you have confidence in her ability to learn.
You know, I keep thinking May, oh my gosh, she's been there a long time.
Yeah,
That is
She
super hard.
was in one facility up until about 20 days ago. She went to the Cove, and that facility was,
She's doing,
somehow she got through all of that.
can I just say that that's just amazing?
That's a
She's
big
young, how
thing.
old is she?
She's 40.
She okay, she's not so young, but okay that, you know, that she's motivating herself through this.
And that's
The
why I keep
system.
telling her, you've done so well.
Yes.
To this
Yes,
point,
cheer,
you've
cheer,
done
cheer.
so
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Really tough circumstances, without any mental health help.
Yes.
She was.
Wow.
Yep.
With lousy treatment. Okay, so with
I
lousy
just keep
treatment.
trying to remind her,
Yes.
you know, this is so much better than where you were, and.
This is what I'm.
I can't help, I said to her today, I can't help but think that this is the place for you, and that,
Yeah.
you know, you need to stick it out here.
Another comment?
I was just curious, do people, if you could talk a little bit about what the program is for learning how to facilitate craft, and if people take that program just to learn how to deal in their own situation better, and maybe not facilitate, like you might learn how to become a yoga teacher just to improve your own practice.
Yes, we do. We do, actually.
Also, if you want to facilitate.
Yeah, we
hard is
do.
it?
So we did offer one in May. We had a 2-day training in May. Dominique and I got together and we did the whole AIR curriculum, and we did a whole bunch of other interactive activities, and we had both we had a whole wide range of situations. So we had professionals that were there that work with people with substance use disorder and work with their families. We had families that were there that wanted to learn about the curriculum itself, and we had plenty of people there that also wanted to facilitate REST meetings. And I have this thing about REST, you gotta get through the training before you can facilitate. But
And
yes, we do.
And then, of course, Laurie has become one of the best trainers of this approach just because of her interest and her own experience with her son, so.
I also think teaching at Simsbury was a huge help.
Yes.
So how extensive is the training?
Right now, it's a 2-day training, 6 hours a day. And then, so what we're doing, how we're setting it up is I'm doing a second training coming up. I'm trying to set that up pretty quickly. And then I'm gonna do a 3rd day of follow-up training of problems that you can expect to come across when you get to these particular modules. Like, people have a very tough time understanding what a bribe is, what an incentive is, and what reinforcing positive behavior is. As soon as they hear reinforcing positive behavior, they think incentive, and that's not it. Right, and that's not it. Not that you can't use incentives, because you can, but incentives can be a little tricky for families. And also people don't understand what a good reward is. People, I've heard things like, well, he's in prison and I'm going to send him the Bible. Which I think is great if he wants the Bible. But who wants him to have the Bible?
Yeah.
Him or you?
Right.
Right? And so understanding, well, what's a good reward? Also understanding that being in the room is a reward. It is a reward. And you can reward negative behavior. So if they're high and you're sitting there, even though you're not engaging and you're not talking, you're kind of sending this message that, hey, it's okay. It's all good. You can sit in the room and be high, and I'm okay with it. Versus, I'm going to go to my room, and I'm going to read a good book tonight. Bye. Right? So, and that actually took me a while to understand, wow, I'm actually reinforcing his awful behavior by staying engaged with him. But just little tweaks. So that's the 3rd day of training. But yes, we do.
Is there a fee?
What I do is I'm going out and I'm writing grants to offer it for free.
Wow.
So that's what I'm doing. So
Where are these trainings offered? Is it just in the state of Massachusetts?
mine are in Rhode Island. Everything I do is in Rhode Island. I live in Massachusetts, I live in Dartmouth, but it's literally right on the Rhode Island line. And Rhode Island is really progressive and forward thinking, and I have a lot of access to stuff. So that's how I ended up in Rhode Island.
Is there an online option too? To get all this information online, or it's only
Well,
in sessions?
The information is online.
all the information, all the content is online for you.
And that's free?
And that's, it's, in Massachusetts, it's free because I talked the state into buying a statewide license to the site. Yes, and otherwise it's $39 a year. And tonight only, you take one of these, and at the bottom it explains how you can get your free 1st-year membership, so that you can all go right home and take a look and just see what made sense to you, what didn't, and how it's taught. So it's all self-paced. One of the biggest successes on the site is a discussion blog where we take your situation. So we'll take what just happened to you. You might write it up and you might say, and one of us responds in a crafty way. So it's open to the whole community, which is a proprietary closed site, but everybody can read what you asked and how we answered. And you learn from that all the details. He came home from school and he was loaded. Do I pay for the next semester? But the ad drop period, and I won't get my money back. So there's tons of this detail. And how do you apply these basic principles to everything that's going on with you? It is great. It's really, really useful and really practical.
So, and I just want to share with you, there is one other thing that I did with REST, and believe it or not, this all started because in Rhode Island, Allies in Recovery is not free for everybody. So I had this Allies in Recovery free membership because I lived in Massachusetts, but it was not free in Rhode Island. And I'm really good at worming my way into things, so like I literally was able to get next to the governor and all of these people, but they weren't listening to me. So I was like, okay, I gotta find another way of worming my way in. So I created the REST Crisis Toolkit. And really this started out at how can I get families to go to the Allies in Recovery website in Rhode Island. And so what I did was, in the kit, I started off with doTERRA, a charcoal deactivation kit for any unused meds in your medicine cabinet. It's eco-friendly. You literally dump your pills into the bag, fill it up with water, and throw it in the garbage. Wow. A 13-panel drug test, and it tests for everything. It tests for fentanyl, OxyContin, heroin, THC, K2 spice, you name it, it's in here. Methamphetamine, whatever you want, cocaine, everything. And this is another thing. The other thing about this is that I believe you need to use these strategically. This is not about going home and going, hey, pee in the cup. I think you got a problem. Causes more problems than anything. It's strategically done. And this was one of the things that I did with my son when he came back. So my son went into recovery in my house. He came back to the house. And he was begging me. He kept saying, I can't get sober on the streets. Can I please come home? And I thought about it, and I said, okay, well, here are my boundaries. Here's my requirements. And one of them was you have to submit to a random drug test. But I was very strategic about it. 90% of the drug tests that I gave him were when I knew he was not using, because I used it as an opportunity to say, look, I want you to take this drug test. I'm just trying to keep you accountable, and I also need to be able to sleep at night because I know you're not using. I know you're not using, but just prove it to me so tonight I can sleep. Right, because otherwise I'm like, I used to go to the top of the stairs and look at where his feet were in the bathroom, yes. Right? Like I was wacky, right? Crazy. So, but I used it as an opportunity, and I can tell you, he was fine. When all was good, man, he was like, oh yeah, give me that drug test, I'll take it. And then I knew what he was using because it was like, I don't have to go to the bathroom for the next 6 hours, right? Or all of a sudden he would do, I love this one. He'd get up, he'd run upstairs to his bedroom, he'd come down and go, I gotta go now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You think, right? Oh, okay. So then we also became gotta watch it leave the penis and go into the cup. Yep, my husband. Yep, gotta watch it going in. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of things that they can do to adjust the test. Yep. And I can also tell you this, when he had his last dip, I had been telling him, so I work in the field now, I had been telling him everything is laced with fentanyl. In fact, in Rhode Island, there is no heroin. It's all fentanyl. And I kept telling him, it's fentanyl. Well, he went off, he did his thing, he came here, and he did his thing, he came back home, and I said to him, I mean, we didn't need to do a test. We all knew, right? He was, oh my God, I'm such a loser, why did I do this? How am I going to stop myself? And I said to him, hey, you know what? Let's just do a test. Let's just see. And he's like, oh, no. I love this one. I told my drug dealer I don't want any fentanyl. I want heroin, and he promised me. Really? That's great. So you listen to your drug dealer over your mother. But okay. Let's just test. Not a bit of heroin in there. It was all fentanyl. And this was good. It was good in that his eyes were like, oh. He was like, yeah, okay. So it was useful. But I had to use it strategically. I knew just setting myself up for arguments, it's not gonna work well. So, next thing, nasal naloxone, 2 doses, 4 milligrams, the good stuff. You don't have to take a cap off it, you don't have to assemble it, you put it up either nostril, it doesn't matter, and there's 2 doses in here. I don't know if you know, is this the stuff you're giving out as well?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
What does that do?
Nasal naloxone is an opioid reversal medicine, so if someone overdoses,
Oh,
it kicks the opioid out of the receptor in the brain and sits there, and it's stickier than the opioid is. And so it gives you more time to get the EMTs there
okay.
to help.
Yeah,
This is what happened, and they gave him, now, when my son overdosed, nobody had it.
No.
And it took 4 doses. But that was back when it was also 2 milligrams, but they were giving him shots, right? And then inside, now to me, this is huge. The Narcan is huge, but this is really huge. And what I did inside was I gave a list of all the different resources in the state of Rhode Island. I'll often add like local resources for towns. I add a little Narcan prescription, fake prescription that you can bring to your pharmacy just to kind of encourage getting over that stigma with going to the pharmacy and purchasing Narcan. And then inside here, I did 2 things. Free membership to the Allies in Recovery website, which to me it's like, if in this bag, if the person doesn't come to a REST meeting, at least they have an Allies in Recovery website. They can get on that website for free, and they can get to at least some kind of help, and actually, in my opinion, the best kind of help. And then, last but not least, I created a framework for families to create their own crisis plan. So when you find yourself in a crisis, it's 5 quick tips of things that you can do. You open it up, and on the inside cover is all things Narcan. So if you come to a REST meeting, I'll make sure you get a crisis toolkit, but I'll also give you a Narcan training. Former high school math teacher, I believe if you write it down, you are more likely to remember it. And then the inside section is all the research you're going to do for your family, for the different resources. Are there any good reads? Are there any good local professionals that you might want to go and see that work with families that are struggling with this problem? The last third of it is all of the resources that you're going to go and look up for your loved one. Things that a lot of people don't know about, things that I wish I knew about. I knew absolutely nothing when I found myself in this situation. So support groups. Are there any local support groups in your area? And just to let everybody know, AA and NA are not the only support groups that are out there. There's Smart Recovery. Smart Recovery can be done on your computer at home because they have online meetings. They have Serenity meetings. They have, in fact, in the state of Rhode Island, I'm pretty sure they have MARS, which is Medically Assisted Recovery Support, is what that acronym stands for. So there's a ton of different meetings. Refuge recovery meetings, which are Buddhist-based, yet my son loves refuge recovery. He does, he loves it. Local counseling professions, inpatient treatment, that's what I thought, that was it, right? 30 days. Or actually, I thought, oh, we'll send him away for a year. He'll get washed, and maybe they'll put him in the dryer, and then I can fold him when he gets home, and we can put him back up on the shelf, and all will be good, right? And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong, right? 30 days if I'm lucky, right? So inpatient, are there any in the area? You know, you can go and look them up. But also being aware that inpatient is not the only treatment. In fact, most people go into recovery not from long-term residential treatment. Most have to use a multitude of things. And actually, most people go into recovery independently on their own. But outpatient.
Spontaneously.
Yes, spontaneously, which I question the numbers on that too. But outpatient treatment, right? That could be a day program, it could be 3 days a week, it could be in the evening. Recovery coaches. I know Connecticut has C-CAR. So I know that there are actually really great recovery coaches, which is not a sponsor, not the same thing. A recovery coach is something completely different. They meet the person where they're at and they help them with whatever it is they want help with. You want help getting your license back, we'll help you with that. You need housing, we'll help you with that. You need to write a resume, we'll help you with that. You need to go into detox, we'll help you with that. They'll help you with whatever it is that the individual needs. Possible scholarships and grants, I had no idea, but they are out there. The Heron Project, for one, I know will fund a lot of people to go into treatment facilities. And then last but not least, local shelters. On the back third of this, now this is specific to Rhode Island, but they have a number in Rhode Island called the BH Link that you can call 24/7 for any mental health or substance use crisis that you're in. They also have a land facility. It's a way to avoid the emergency room. And they will take the person and give them a bed and try and work with them. They'll call a recovery coach in and they'll try and work with that person to get them into treatment, whatever treatment they want. And then the Providence Safe Stations. So in Providence, and now they've opened it up to Newport, that you can drop in 24/7 into any one of the fire stations there and ask for help. And they will call a recovery coach and they will get you the help that you need. Now, this piece needs to be done strategically. Again, this is not a matter of, hey, I got a list of resources. Here, it's, you're waiting to hear that wish or that dip. I don't want to live like this anymore. Tell me about that. Well, the drugs are just, I want to stop using. You know what? I have this list of resources. Is there anything on here that you would be willing to look at? No, I'm trying to control your life? Okay, well, Mama's just going to put it over here on the bulletin board and walk away. I have found that I freak out when he says no in the beginning, but I have found 9 out of 10 times he walks away and he thinks about what I've said.
Yeah.
Almost every, and I have found it might be a week, but he does eventually come around to it and he looks at it. And then if he's, maybe they just hate you right now and they're on their way out the door. I'm going to go couch surfing. I'm going to go live under the bridge. I'm going to do whatever. You can always, it's perforated, you tear it off, you stick it in a backpack, you put it in a coat pocket, and they've always got that, well, in Rhode Island, at least they've got these 2 resources, and it's always available to them. And then last but certainly not least, a sleeping mask, earplugs, and a blow-up neck pillow so you guys can get some rest. And what I did was I got the state of Rhode Island to fund my bags for me.
My oldest son is in Minnesota. He's a senior designer already at 25 for 3M. And they flew me out there. They said, we want to meet this mother of this amazing young man, both of my boys. And there's a place, I got a tour of it, it's called Face to Face. And the amount of homeless teenagers in Minnesota blew my mind. And is there any way I could get information and have my son forward it, or I could forward it to something to Face?
You mean the kid itself?
No, the information that you're providing.
Well, this is always available online to anybody who wants it, right?
Okay. And I can send it to them.
And if you just take this home and you can send it to your son, and they can take a look at it.
Okay.
And where is Christy from? There's
Christy's
2.
Arizona, and there's Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, and I
there's
thought
New
there was
York.
one in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think there's one. We have, like Lisa, we have moms sort of cropping up and getting in touch with us and saying, I like this program very much, could I use it? And we just go, use, take it all, I don't care, just use it. Because I'm telling you, this is, and it may have sounded tedious to listen to us at the detail that we're at with this, but it is in those details. In 12 weeks, you'll get 70% consistently, study after study, 70% of people agreeing to go into treatment in 12 weeks of training that family in craft.
I'll just tell you one quick story. I had a young girl come in, and it was her husband. They were newly married, and she came in, and he apparently was using fentanyl. He wasn't lying, he wasn't hiding it from her, but he didn't know what to do. And she sat there one night, I stayed late, and we talked, and she kept saying, he can't not work. He cannot, we just bought a house. And I kept asking her, well, is he willing to go on medically assisted treatment? Yes. But he doesn't want to go to detox. So I kind of talked her down and I said, okay. I said, how about if you approach it like this, where you say to him, I know you're struggling to detox yourself at home. If you go into detox, it's only about 4 or 5 days, and they can give you some comfort meds and it'll feel better. It's not going to feel great, it's not going to be wonderful, but you can feel better. And I can support that. And I know you don't want to stay for long-term treatment, but if you go into detox, they can set you up with a clinic appointment as soon as you get out, and you can go on to methadone or Suboxone or whatever it is. Would you be willing to do that? And that way you can keep your job. And she just went from I got a phone call that night at about 12 o'clock, and she said to me, he wants to go, who do I call? And I was like, call the numbers on there. And call, and he did. He went to Roger Williams, and I've only seen her one time since then. He went into recovery. No, I mean, how often does that happen? But it's the approach, right? It's that approach on how can you tap into the positive.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.